Hi, and welcome to The Art of Aging, which is part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from United Church Homes. On this show, we look at what it means to age in America and in other places around the world with positive and empowering conversations that inspire everyone everywhere to age with abundance. We hope. We are filming a series of shortcuts to support our annual symposium with the Ruth Frost Parker Center that's happening on Friday, October 4th. Ruth Frost Parker Center is the sponsor of this video series, and I have with me today the Reverend Beth Long-Higgins, who heads the center and is also my wonderful co-host on this podcast series. Welcome, Beth.
Hello, Mike.
And we are putting together a series of kind of shorter videos, shortcuts, that will go through each of the, or a number of topics that we feel help to define the work of the center. Again, we encourage everyone to check out our annual symposium. Friday, October 4th, the subject's going to be meaning, purpose, and redefining retirement. Terrific speakers all lined up like Richard Eisenberg, Anna Hall, and Janine Vanderberg. Please check out how to attend the symposium. We'd love to see you in person, but you can also attend virtually. Check it out at www.unitedchurchhomes.org/Parker-Center. So, Beth, all that being said, this episode is all going to be about this concept of aging in place. So, I remember someone saying that I think it was an AARP study that said that 90% of people wanted to age in place, and the joke is there's an APB out for the other 10% because. First of all, I mean, when you hear the term aging in place, what kind of runs through your mind?
Well, first of all, in our last shortcut, we kind of laid down that we believe everyone is aging. So everyone is aging, right?
Surprise.
And everyone is in a place. Even those who are houseless, they're then aging in the place in which they find themselves. We don't age outside of locale. And this phrase in the culture has come to equate aging as being people that we all want to age in the home in which we are currently living. And there's an assumption that we own that home. And if that's what people mean when they say this phrase, then I think there are a series of questions that are helpful to consider, right? Mm-hmm. So if I could have a conversation when someone says, those 90% of the people, so we can't have conversation with 90% of the people who say they want in place, I would say, why? What is it about the place where you're living that you think is going to allow you to thrive and age well?
Well, it's the place I've got all my memories, right? I mean, this is, I look at everything that I've got around here. I mean, I'm weirder than most because, we love to collect antiques and collectibles and oddities and all that. But I look around and I see in my home that we've lived in, since 2012. And I see all sorts of things that just sort of remind me of, this antique store we found this at, or this vacation where we found that. I mean, it sort of provides me with that warm blanket and that sense of sort of safety, right?
Absolutely. And so the next question is, do you know how it is that you are going to age in the future? Can you anticipate the physical needs and the psychological and mental health needs that you're going to have in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And can you ensure that the place where you are right now is going to meet all of those needs that might present themselves in your life?
Well, I'm a bit of a ringer, Beth, seeing as this has been my career for the last 20 years. So yeah, I've got the double grab bars on the stairs, and I've got all the blocking in place for the eventual. But it's all really, to be honest with you, it's all really kind of centered around function and functional wellness and physical wellness, and just this idea that there's an inevitable decline in that, and that's sort of like the specter that looms around here is either you don't think about it, or when you do, it's a negative, so I don't know. That's a big question because I don't know the totality of my my progression from a mental standpoint. How does my physical interact with the mental? I mean, there's two. So I can't say that this house is because I don't know what that's going to look like.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Oh, you made me fall into that one.
it worked.
It
Um,
was.
the reality is we are present biased. We think that the way we are today is the way we're going to be in the future. That even if we age, as we age, not if we age, as we age, and knowing that aging is all about change, we don't think that there's going to be much change going forward. So the next question is, do individuals who like the home that they live in, they've built the home or they've lived there for a long time or they like the stuff around them, is a part of wanting to age in place a way of avoiding making decisions about what to do with that stuff or avoiding the grief that happens
Oh, there you
when
go.
we let go of
There you go.
things that have been important to us.
Oh man, now you're blowing my mind here. You're right. No, it's yeah, it's that's the thing. We have a relationship with our past. We have our relationship with our lived history. We honor the lived history. We kind of mourn the loss of maybe adventures that we could have taken earlier and or whatever it might be. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this house right now. And it's going to be really hard to break up with it.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you have to do it right this minute. But I think my dad always used to say, thinking in terms of, he was also a pastor in terms of his ministry, he tried to keep in mind the fact that he was never going to be the minister in any location forever, and he had to be mindful of the folks who can follow after him. So for me, and this part also comes from experience with our family, um, if I can't part with those things and I stay in this house with all of these beloved things around me and I die, then
Yeah.
I am leaving um, the burden, and it's an emotional burden, it's a physical burden for my kids. For me, it is my kids, for them to have to sort through the stuff. And the reality is, I know people in who are our age who are having to do this for their parents, and literally they bring in the dumpster, and
Oh no, yeah.
mom and
Yeah.
dad aren't there, and they're not even going through the stuff, and they're just throwing it in the dumpster.
Everything in our house that's not upholstered came from somebody else's house. We're just, we love it. We love the treasure hunt. We love all of that. But you're right. I've seen it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of time with just various kind of like, you know, I don't know. And I don't see a lot of sentiment in that. I go to, it's basically, let's just get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. There's not a lot of sentiment. So how should people be looking at this, Beth? I mean, give us a tip to kind of maybe just get ourselves into a better, or start our thought process into a way that may be more healthy here.
Yeah, so I'll tell you about a process I've just gone through. For the past 35 years, I my family and I direct a camp, and for 30 of those years, I set up a beatery, and every afternoon for a week, I was helping and providing the materials for folks to make jewelry. You know,
Yes.
and over 30 years you acquire quite a few beads, just saying.
Yes.
um, and since the pandemic, that disrupted the ability to have camp for a year, and I realized I did not have joy or energy in doing that activity anymore.
Hmm.
And so those beads have been in bins. Some of them are available, but most of them have been in bins in the basement. And I'm talking, you know, a lot of beads. I could have literally opened up a small beach
They're going to
store.
be worth something someday, Beth. You have to hold on to them. Yeah.
Well, and so they were sitting there, and I've been aware in the back of my head. Both of my kids participated in the activity at camp, and sometimes we would do stuff at home, like when we do birthday parties. That was something their friends would do, but they don't. They've never had the same passion about this hobby that I did, and quite frankly, I don't have the same interest in this hobby. And yet I wasn't ready to part with those beads. And so they sat where they sat for the 6 years that we've lived in our current home. And finally, last month, I decided I need to find a new home for these beads where they're going to be appreciated so that they don't just go in a dumpster somewhere, because they are worth something. And so emotionally, I'm not throwing them away, but I'm finding a good home for them. I'm giving
Yes.
them, I'm in this case, I'm giving them to a couple of people who I know are going to appreciate them. And so I did. 10 days ago, loaded up the car, and we took the rest of the beadery to a dear, dear friend. And she, much to her husband's dismay, is now going to be converting one of the rooms in their house into her own mini bead store, because she already has some of her own.
But what did that feel like, though, Beth? What did that feel like to sort of just unburden yourself from maybe just this thing that had been kind of just in the back of your mind? And
It was 5 years of, well, actually, it was longer than that, because the last couple of years that I was doing it, I was resentful that I had to keep doing this, in all honesty. And then for the past, yeah, and then for the past 5 years, it's been weighing on me. And it's not a daily weight, but when I would think about, or I go by the stack of stuff in the basement, it's like, oh, and I can't tell you, it is a relief. I don't have the burden. I don't have the burden of that stuff anymore. Um, and and so it is a process. It is a grief process. It is but it's also kind of a legacy. You know, if these things are really important, and I think that there are others for whom this is going to be important, then can I share them with them? You know, for some of us, we need to sell stuff because there's a financial reality to the value of things. Um, and hopefully, as we sell things, we're finding individuals who are going to appreciate them as well. Um, but the stuff can also become a burden and prohibit us from making decisions, which really need to be made. And I think of the individual who, his wife had died, and he one of the first things, they pieces of furniture they bought was a dining room set, and they did it kind of over a series of years. And it was a table that expanded, could fit a large number of people on the table. There was a hutch which they could display the
right,
pieces of
tons
art
of
on the
memories around the
display.
table, and yeah.
And because the table could collapse, had, besides having lots of leaves, but the ends folded down, he was able to keep that through two moves. And so he's in an apartment living by himself. And as his health and his physical abilities were declining, and the kids were talking about, we need to, maybe it's time for you to move. And he would go and look at places. There wasn't room for the dining room set. That was the excuse. And
Oh,
none of his kids have room in their house for this dining room set. And by the way, they'd all been married for 20, 30, 40 years. They already had their own stuff.
right.
Their grandkids were not in the grandkids were not in a place where they said, yeah, I'll take that. And that became one of the final stumbling blocks. So when our physical stuff, or our attachment, emotional attachment to the place where we're currently living, or to the things that surround us in that place, are prohibiting us from really making the decisions which need to be made, it becomes a problem. And for this individual, it took a couple more months and multiple falls and
Oh
multiple
dear. Yeah.
um, going to the ER before the doctor finally said, you don't have an option. You cannot live on your own. And at that point, he wasn't moving into another apartment. He was moving into an assisted living, one room in a greenhouse. The dining room set couldn't go.
It's
And
yeah.
then the kids felt guilty because the dining room set then went to the church garage sale. Um, so hopefully somebody found value in that, and the money was contributed to the church, but they never told dad. They never told their dad, hey, this is what happened.
When you take a look at everything that you have and you think about, the space that it takes up, and then, you start to pare that down, pare that down, pare that down. it's almost like the possibilities open for you again. You know that. I mean, what would happen if you were to distill your life down just to a few things you could put in your car, and then boom, you could go anywhere with it, right? So it's. I mean, there's a lot more to unpack. These are supposed to be mini cuts, but you know, there's just, I think you're opening up people's eyes just to the proxies we place in the things that we can touch and see and have sort of like this relationship with. And it's almost like, for me, you know, if you get rid of the thing, you get rid of the memory. You get
Yeah.
rid of the thing, you get rid of the memory. And I think that that's lots of food for thought, you know?
Yeah. And just one final piece. My husband and I did a lot of traveling recently, and so we were away from home, literally living out of suitcases for about 2 months. We switched out clothes from one climate to another in the course of those two months. And there was something very freeing about, I can live with this much stuff. And I also know how, what it felt like to go home and to be surrounded by all the things that we have put in our home that are familiar. But I think leaving our place and spending time away from our stuff also helps us to realize what's important. And so this giving away of those, the beatery kind of came in the aftermath of that significant time away. It's like, okay, what am I hanging on to here that really I don't need?
I love that. Beth, thank you very much for chatting through this subject with me. Again, for the audience, thank you for listening to this relatively shortcut, depending, you know, compared to other episodes we've done. And of course, please attend our annual symposium. It's going to be on Friday, October 4th at the Nationwide Conference Center in beautiful Columbus, Ohio. Theme of the symposium: meaning, purpose, and redefining retirement. And for more information, please visit www.unitedchurchhomes.org/Parker-Center. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks.